Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce and another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond compare.
Jetzt kommt das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von hinten an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away. Oh, what a goal!
Welcome back to Dortmund Dispatch. Today I'm joined by my dear friend, Brian Slankstraub. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Lots to talk about today. Lots of transfer stuff that we're going to cover within the context of our new sporting director, Ole book. And some interesting news came out about Schlotterbeck as well that I think we'll get into afterwards as well. So excited to talk about it. How about you? How are you doing?
First of all, more importantly, I think with the international break, it sounds like you took a Hobbit-esque trip up through the mountains and made it back home. Is that correct?
I did. Yes, I've been completely disconnected and it feels nice. It definitely felt good to be able to do that for a bit. So no service unless Wi-Fi. And yeah, I highly recommend it to anybody that can get out right now. Get out, get some time out there amongst the trees.
Did you get to drop the ring into the volcano?
No, I did not.
Oh,
I did not journey into Mordor. I journeyed to the Catskills. So
close enough.
It was a good time though.
That's
How
good.
are you doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic.
I'm glad to hear.
So, anyway, let's start off with our first rumor. We're going to start with Nicolo Tresoldi, linked with Borussia Dortmund, a player I said had about, well, I think I talked about him last year. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I was probably something along the lines of half the price and more upside than Fabio Silva, as he moved for about half the price. From Hanover in the second tier of German football over to Club Bruges, where he's had 17 goals and 5 assists in all competitions, and he's rumored to be on the move, with Borussia Dortmund interested, alongside many Premier League clubs, with the rumored asking price to be between 25 and 30 million euros. Yeah,
I mean, just looking at this, at face value, I think it'd be a great move, especially if Guirassy is, as he's rumored to be leaving. I think this is a player with, like what you said, quite a bit of upside. I think the move from Brugge to Dortmund makes more sense than it would to the Premier League. So I think for him, from a personal standpoint, I think that's just a better move. But overall, he's known to have quite good positioning and awareness. He's flexible tactically, combines well with his teammates, and he's pretty physically imposing as well. So I do think that, that's one of the things that Guirassy offers mainly is that physicality. And I think looking for a player that can kind of bring a little bit of that in the advent of his departure is important as well. So I do think that this is a very flexible and good tactical choice for Dortmund if Guirassy were to leave. So yeah, I think this would be a great move if they were to go for it.
Yeah, I'm a little confused why the asking price would be so low. That might be like an overly optimistic agent, because this is a player who moved last summer.
Yeah.
Definitely in that Ollie book mold of the younger players he's kind of looked at.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't necessarily go away from it there, but it's just that he moved last summer, and we just saw that they did sell a player they bought the previous summer in the previous winter in Arden Yashari, but he was a few years older. He moved at 22 or 23, and Tresoldi is only 21 right now. So I feel like you have a younger player in a position that typically costs more in transfer fees.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how you don't end up with a comparable, at minimum, transfer fee for Tresoldi, assuming they still qualify for the Champions League again next year. I believe it's the top 2 out of Belgium qualify for the Champions League. And they have a very funny league schedule where they split in half, and the top 6 compete for the 2 Champions League spots. They're currently in second. They're 6 points clear. Sint-Truidsdale, I can't pronounce that. I'm very sorry. Is in third, and if it was a historically bigger side, I'd have a little more faith there. So I think that Ali Book, because we're going to look through his lens in this episode. I think he's going to go away from this just because it's not going to make financial sense. I think he could get a move next summer, but I think there is more he can prove in Belgium. And he just moved last summer, and they have enough money that I think they can say no. They don't necessarily need to, because I think his level of production is still very replaceable at this point. 13 goals, 20 starts, another 10 substitute appearances. So he's not lighting the world on fire. He's just playing very good and is very young. So I just don't think that rumored fee is correct, and I don't foresee that being the move.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. If we're looking through books lens as we are, then depending on what the fee would be, I think like if we're pushing above that 30, like he's not going to be the main option on the radar. But I do think like perhaps like if they did something where it was like 30 and like bonuses or something like that, which maybe something Brugge might go for, maybe that's some sort of deal that they can pull off. And from what I've been reading, Book is a pretty shrewd negotiator. So if they were to pursue this player, I think that he'd quite possibly be able to pull something like that off. Just from what I've read. So
yeah, I mean, you know what I always say about like negotiating with teams when a player signed the previous summer, like unless you're talking about going from like the 12th, 15th best league in Europe up to like a top 4 league. In this case, like then it's a lot easier. In this case, however, we're talking about like a top 7, 8 league. A team that's in the Champions League for the last 4 years. Like they have money. You're not finding a bargain. So I think we're ready to move on to the next player.
Yeah, he's a player that I think is more likely to fit the mold of a Book signing simply because he knows the guy pretty well, and that's Fiznik Aslani from Hoffenheim. Book knew him from his time at Elversberg, so I think that's definitely something more on his radar in terms of a signing should Girassi leave. I think the release clause is 25 to 29 million euros, something like that. So once again, affordable for the club. 9 goals and 8 assists for Hoffenheim this season, has the Bundesliga experience. I think that connection to Book will definitely be something that has him explore this player as a possibility. There's just been so many links that I feel like to this player that it would be very shocking for me if it wasn't explored. You do have both Barcelona and Bayern also interested in the player, so there is that as well. But I do think that if Girassi leaves, Book could sell him on joining Dortmund and having a prominent role at the club.
Yeah, I think I might be starting to fade on Aslani. In the second half of the season, his XG and his expected assists appear to have dropped off because what I'm looking at, it's not really gone up a lot since the first half when you were seeing it. So right now he's at about 10 total expected goals and expected assists in 24 starts, 26 appearances, over 1,800 minutes. Like, that's good. But he's in a top 4 team. He's not elite. Like, you'd probably want to see a little bit more. Maybe you could argue he's like the one carrying the attack or whatever. I don't know how soft their end of the season is. Like, if they're playing a bunch of crap teams, then maybe I'll go higher on him. Like, I see their next matches against Mainz, but I don't really think there's enough there statistically for a player who's going to be 24 by the time he plays his first game at the club. That it's going to be worth that 25 million euro fee. Like, I think it could be for someone else, but I'd prefer a higher upside guy. I think the only reason I think I'm really into this is that release clause makes it easier. Like, are the wages going to be that high? I don't really think so. I think he's probably an upgrade on Fabio Silva. Where do you think he would fit in our current depth chart?
I mean, it would really depend on how our other strikers finish the season, right? I mean, if Maxi Bayer can pop in a few more goals, and if Fabio Silva can, you know, get going finally, in terms of actually putting the ball in the back of the net, then I feel like it'll be a pretty open race, in terms of who's in the starting 11. Obviously, Karim Adeyemi, if he stays, is in there as well. So, I mean, it also depends on how we end up playing, right? Like if we stick with the front two, then we we ask the question, how much rotation will there be, especially in the first half of the season? I would expect there to be, enough time for him to get significant minutes, particularly because, we're going to be in three competitions, so it's not like we won't find the time for him. Um, I would assume, based on where we are now, if Girassi leaves, that front two would either be Aslani and Bayer, or Aslani and Adeyemi at this point, just because I feel like Silva still has a little bit to prove. I don't think he'd have like that shoe in, but I do think it'd be more open than, for example, if Kovac still had Girassi, at his disposal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like, to me, like, I'm not even I don't believe in Garasi a ton, obviously, like, for those that listen to this show. But like, we're talking about a guy with 6.58 XG. They have like 6, 7 games left to go, and like they're only really playing Dortmund and Stuttgart, and then they're playing a bunch of teams in the mid-table, like lower half. So like, there is a lot of work he could put in those games. And if he does, I would be back on him a little bit. But even then, like, this guy is turning 24 on August 8th. And so that means you're getting what he is. And do you really see him taking like the jump from where he is now to being like an elite player? Like, this is a guy with well under 2.5 shots per game. The expected assists are like good for a striker, but his XG is so bad that it's not like there's just not enough production. He's like, he does press, but not like a ton. He can't really dribble. He's very poor in the air. Like, there's not enough attacking output for me to like not have some of these other skills, you know? Like, Maxi Bayer doesn't necessarily have the goal output. He has more than Aslani for sure, but he also has the elite pressing skill. Like, do you think Aslani has an elite skill outside of like goals and assists that can make up for that?
I mean, so because I'm not gonna sit here and say I've watched a ton of Hoffenheim. Well, let me first start my thought off by saying, if you put Tresoldi and Aslani in front of me and said you get to pick one of these two players to sign for Dortmund, I would go for Tresoldi, simply because I do think there is higher upside there. Once again, it still depends on how our players develop, because if you bring in Tresoldi, I don't know if I would like 100% like expect him to be that main focal point in attack. Whereas if you bring in Aslani, he's a little bit older. He has that Bundesliga experience. I would expect him to have more of an impact right away. Everything that I've basically heard and what I've seen from Aslani, and basically read up on him, in doing research on the player, he has quite good close control, which is one of the things that people have focused on in the box. And he does put himself in good positions to score goals. I can't comment on his XG. Obviously, you did earlier. Didn't have that in front of me. But everything that I've read says that he's a very hardworking player as well. So has a little bit of that same thing that I like about Maxi Bayer, about his game. And unless the numbers say otherwise, to my understanding, he's also quite good in the air as well. From everything that I've seen, most people say that he is quite a good aerial threat. I don't know how much Hoffenheim are playing to that skill, but everything that I've read has said that he does have the ability to be an aerial threat as well, which is something we would be missing in losing a player like Girassi. So which is something that I would assume that we would look for in a player that we were replacing him with.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the aerial duels, they're very low in terms of the amount he's attempting, and then they're even lower in the percent he's winning. So
So
he's
is that based on? And I'm sorry to cut you off. I just
yeah.
want clarity on this for my own knowledge. Is that based on the fact of how Hoffenheim is playing, as in they're not putting in those types of crosses or anything, or are they like a big set piece team? Like, do you have any insight on that?
So from watching them, they do have set piece threats that I would argue are much better than him, namely Andre Kramaric. I think if you're running set piece plays for a guy in the box, it's going to be him. I know they have some center backs that have scored, like Ozan Kabak has historically, I think, been a 1 or 2 goal a season player. They have Aquaguma. He's 6'4". He's very, very good in the air to my recollection. So from an eye test, like I haven't noticed him being good or bad in the air. And I do watch a lot of the Bundesliga, so I can't say from the eye test that there's anything tactically missing in terms of his ability to head the ball. Like I just don't see it. The way it reads statistically is that there is such low volume there that the low volume, like low win percentage for a striker typically reads to me that the statistics show that he's not getting targeted in the air because he's not good at it. Like that's how it reads statistically. That would be my assumption from that. That's not always 100% the case because there could be a manager that has this player that's like 5'10" who can jump 10 feet off the ground and is going to win a lot of like headers when they're able to run and attack the ball. Um, so I'm not saying he's useless, but statistically it reads that way. And he's like tall, but he's listed 6'3". I had him as a little shorter. But heading would get better, but and like maybe the volume's so low, that's why the win percentage is so low, and maybe Hoffenheim, like if I go read through this, I'm gonna look through the squad list real quickly. Like, yeah, I would have Kramaric is probably being better than him in the air, even though he's shorter. That's just my recollection of it, but I could be traumatized by some of his good games against Borussia Dortmund. And then in the defense, you have Kabak, who's like not bad. Bernardo's not bad. Haidari, I think, has scored some goals this year. Like all these guys are very, very strong. Like I said, I had Kevin Akpaguma's height correct. So he's very strong in the air, obviously. He's probably their main target. So like if we're talking about, just to give you reference, the aerial duels one, he actually, I don't know. So right now I'm looking at SofaScore because we don't have as good data as FBref used to have. So like maybe that's the issue with what I'm looking at with his aerial win rate, because this has Kevin Akpaguma at 0.2 per 90 with the 50% win rate. Oh, but this has 42 minutes. What am I looking at? Oh, so he just hasn't played this year. Let me give you a better comparison. If we look at like Guirassy, his win rate is probably not going to be great because it's harder for strikers. They typically get matched up with center backs. Guirassy's at 56% of his aerial duels won, and he's at 3.1. So like you have so much volume that you know he's good in the air. With Aslani, he has very low volume. He's not a super built guy, so like he'd have to learn like the little dark arts of the game, I think. I'm not saying he can't get better at that. That is something that gets better with age. But it's not a skill that you can bank on. So I imagine Haidari's probably one of their bigger set piece threats, and he's like only an inch shorter, but that's a pretty thick chested center back to my recollection. I don't know.
I mean, just looking at some of his per 90 numbers here, I mean, in terms of like in comparison to the players, 1.40 chances created, 0.3 big chances created per 90, 50% in terms of his successful crosses, which obviously isn't something that we'd be trying to get him to be doing because we want him to be finishing.
No, I think you actually would. I think he is very creative. Like whoever he's playing with, he's probably going to be the like. If he's playing with Adeyemi, like maybe he goes into the box more, but you still want him getting on the ball. Like he can create for other players. I think that's
No, the
arguably
creation
his
for
best skill set.
the creation for sure. I'm just saying in terms
Yeah.
of like being the wide player going into cross. Like when I think of Aslani creating things, I think of his interplay with players and putting in a good pass in the final third or something like
Mhm.
that, the way you would as like a second striker. So I mean, I do think it would be interesting, for example, to see him and Bayer up front. I think that would be a very interesting front too. So I really don't think like I wouldn't be upset if we signed him. And once again, if we're looking through Book's lens, I think this is almost like a tap in for him. It's like a player that is doing quite well in the Bundesliga, maybe cooled off, like you said, in the second half of the season, but it has a personal relationship with him, can sell him a project. Yeah, I think honestly, if we're talking about it from Book's perspective, I think that this is a player he looks at for sure.
Yeah, my issue with it for Book is like, do you want your like sometimes people go to their first like what's most familiar, but on the other hand, he could be a little nervous. I think it's gonna be like what you said, where he goes back to what's familiar. But you could also look at it and be like, do you want your biggest signing to be a guy that you brought in for a different club on loan? And like in the Bundesliga right now, I'm reading 8 goals, 5 assists. I think he has 9 goals, 8 assists in all competitions. Like 17 goal contributions is not great for a top 4 side. When you're talking about a decent money move to a big club like Borussia Dortmund.
I mean, it works out differently for different people, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when it comes to sporting directors that I can think of that have done that in the past, I mean, Sven Mislintat is the first and foremost person that I think of that is notorious for bringing in players from previous clubs. And obviously, the main good example that I can think of for him is during his time in Arsenal when he brought in Aubameyang, right? Obviously, this is a much higher level transfer, bigger sample size, and obviously Aubameyang when he was playing for Dortmund and his first couple seasons with Arsenal, I think he was a world class striker, right? So I mean, there's less like less risk there, obviously. But it's I mean it's a mixed bag at the end of the day. But I don't necessarily think going back to what you're familiar with is always a bad thing, especially when granted he's not. I guess he's not setting the Bundesliga alight, right? But he is performing quite consistently, I would say overall. Like the 9 goals and 8 assists. Like there are other players that we've looked at over the course of the last couple of years at Dortmund that have put up similar numbers, and we've been like, yeah, this is great. So I wouldn't fully put that to the side and just be like, oh, okay, like it's not.
There's never been a striker that's put up those numbers that we've been happy with.
Maxi Bayer, his contributions haven't gone past 16 or 17 goals and assists for us at all. Maybe this season, but prior seasons,
yeah, but he's been on the wing, and
yeah.
I think he's also not played a lot. Like last season when he was at, I think, like 14, 16 goal contributions in all competitions, it was
about 16.
Yeah, he was like the 4th most used attacker on the team, behind guys like Adeyemi, Guirassy, Brandt, etc., etc., etc. So like Aslani's, he's starting. Like he's playing pretty much every game from the start. 24 of his 26 appearances from the start. So that's my criticism. Like I don't hate the player. I like him.
Yeah.
He passes the eye test, but he does not pass the statistics test.
I think the other thing is too, though, like you look at the quality player he'd be playing with. I think it's like that's gonna up his numbers, I think, as well. Because like if we're talking about like chance creation and stuff like that, like the guy creates chances. Who's more likely to finish those chances? A player on Borussia Dortmund or granted, no disrespect to Kramaric, because he's been a class striker for them. But aside from Kramaric, like, I don't know. I feel like upping the level of player you're playing with also ups your productivity. So
in some ways it's like the passes he makes could be received better, but he's overperforming his expected assists, so it's not like the quality of finishing is going to get that much better for Borussia Dortmund. Um, like overperformance, like getting lucky on his expected assists this season doesn't mean he's going to get unlucky next season. Over a big enough sample size, though, it should even out. Even at Borussia Dortmund, we're talking about like typically Borussia Dortmund are between 5 and 30% overperformance year on year. Your median is probably in that like 15 to 20% range. Or I'd say even 10 to 15% is probably typically how Borussia Dortmund overperforms their XG. So you could imagine like a 66% overperformance of his expected assists, not sustainable. But yeah, he is very good at creating chances. I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like I've already said, like if it came down to the two strikers that we've talked about so far, I would probably go with Tresoldi just because of like what you said earlier, much higher upside. But I'm just not going to be mad if we sign him. Like I'll be cool with it, and I'll
Yeah.
I think he'll perform.
Let's quickly go. I too would prefer Tresoldi. Tresoldi, my excitement, I think becomes a little nervous at about 35 mil, like that quoted price that I think is a little low. I think that's a little low for a reason because I'd be very excited about it. At 35, I'd start to be a little nervous. For Asllani, I think at 25, I'm like at a 6.5 out of 10 excitement level. At 29, which is the high end of that rumored release clause, I think all of a sudden I'm at like a 5.5. Like I'm still like he'll probably be pretty good, but I'm not like that shot volume's pretty low for me. Maybe the shot quality goes up at Borussia Dortmund and the shot quality takes up, but now we're talking about like projecting team effects and that scares me. So I'll let you have the last word. What's your excitement level for each of those two players?
Tresoldi would be definitely like a 8 or 9. Asllani would be like a 7-ish, but still, I'd be happy with the signing personally.
Yeah, I'm in the same range on Tresoldi. We talked for a very long time on Asllani. Let's move on to the next one. This should be a lot faster. Nikola Vlasic as a potential Julian Brandt replacement. Have not heard that name in a while. Kovac is apparently a fan. The contract is up in 2027, and he has 7 goals and 3 assists in Serie A.
Yeah, this one, I don't know how to feel about it personally, simply because it once again it really depends on how we play next season with what sort of players on the pitch. If we're talking about 10s, I feel like there's a lot better options out there that we could go for. So do I think that this is something that Book would go for? Probably not. I think he'd probably look for a player that's A, much younger, and B, has a bit more upside based on what we've heard about him and how he works. So, and I also don't think Serie A was mentioned as like one of his like predominant markets. I think he mainly focuses on German football, France, and he mentioned, I think England was mentioned as well, but France was a big market for him. So I think, I don't know, I don't see this one.
Yeah, this feels very antithetical to his just general ideology from how we've been sold it, at least. So if we sign this player, that would definitely negate some of the PR we've heard about Book. Like, this is a guy who's on the wrong side of the age curve at 28. So that just means he's in physical decline, doesn't mean he's in performance decline. But this is a guy who's seen better years. He's going to demand a hefty wage, and he's going to demand a transfer fee. It's probably not going to be something big, but would I want to be the one paying it? Absolutely not. This is a guy who's like this year, okay, in the league, 7 goals, 3 assists, according to SofaScore. Last season, we're looking at 4 goals, 5 assists. The season before, we're looking at 3 goals, 2 assists. I don't know. Maybe like in Italy, maybe he's fine not having to run. But like, is this the guy you want coming into a Champions League side?
The one thing that I will say is that like looking back at like some of the things that like Rickon has said since book has been announced, he also did say, and obviously this is the case, you can't just have like a bunch of kids running around on the pitch. You need a balance. You need, some seasoned individuals with experience to be able to provide guidance to the young and more exciting players that are going to be brought in. So the only way I see something like this happening is if Kovac indeed is really a fan, and Rickon also puts pressure in and says, "Hey, this is an experienced guy that could, be an asset even if off the bench." Um, so yeah, I don't know, but at the end of the day, if it came down to me, I think if we're looking for a 10, we look elsewhere. But
Yeah. So also like right now we still have Anton, we have Kobel,
yeah,
we have Ben Sabaini is basically, I think, a lock to return. And then you're talking about probably Nico Schlotterbeck, probably Savitzer returning. Felix Nemecha is a lock to return. He's a senior player now. This isn't a young guy. He's been around. Right back, you have Julian Ryerson. That's a lot of experience. We're not going to have
you already
children
have it. Yeah, exactly.
running around. Kareem Adeyemi's a senior player at this point, not necessarily the most mature player, but he's a senior one. Maxi Bayer next year needs to be getting to the point where he's a very much a senior player. He's heavily experienced by next year. He'll have 3 full years of senior Bundesliga football. So
Yeah.
I don't think like, I think it's, and you'll probably have Sabitzer. I don't know. I think he's available, but we'll see.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So overall, I don't see them moving in that direction. I think that could more mean like we're gonna sign 23, like 22 to 23-year-olds, not just. The next one is the most Ollie book signing rumor we have, and that's Louis Ben Farhat from Karlsruher SC. He has 5 goals and 2 assists in the 2 Bundesliga and plays a second striker type of role with a rumored 12 million euro asking price.
Yeah, I mean, definitely very much an Ole Book signing. I mean, he's probably familiar with him to some degree from being in the 2 Bundesliga, right? So he's seen this guy up close and personal. So I mean, like, definitely the right type of profile for Book. At 12 million euros, I think that this is, it's a reasonable signing for Dortmund to make. Obviously not as any sort of replacement for Girassi or anything like that, but as a option for the future, or as a player that could provide some depth. We've seen Frankfurt benefit from their signing of Ebnou Talib. He's a player that came in that's been a player that they're slowly starting to get excited about. So I definitely think that with Book's knowledge of the 2 Bundesliga, I think this is a player that we could very much realistically see join Dortmund this summer.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting player. I think 12 million might even be high. Because I think Schanuzen went for about 10, and he played for a team with a bigger stadium and had more goals, more assists. There could be contract stuff there that's a little different affecting that. It's definitely reasonable for that type of gamble. The heat map is pretty much like cutting, like he's not a true winger. That's not necessarily, he is so young though that he could probably figure it out. He's a little over his expected goals, a little over his expected assists. I don't really mind it at his age. The minutes are almost 1,000, which is very promising in and of itself. The pass numbers are low, which indicates that he's kind of a striker. He's a floater more than a winger, but you could maybe ask him to play on the wing more. The dribble volume is very low. The success rate's very low. That could be sample size stuff. That could also be because he's a child and he's not physically developed enough. So those are all things that should get better. There's nothing really glaring that's a hole in his game. Like, he presses, not a ton, but it's there. You can certainly teach a 19-year-old how to press more. That's probably something Niko Kovac would enjoy doing. I like this. I think this is a very intriguing. It's not a 10 out of 10. It's not even an 8 out of 10. I think, but it's a very solid 7 out of 10. And if you're talking about single digit million euros, you can get me up to an 8. Is Borussia Dortmund back? We're signing academy players from this second tier for sub 10 million euros. Pretty exciting to me.
Yeah, no, I think it's a market that we've neglected for quite some time. I mean, if we just think back to our previous how to fix videos, we talked about players like Casper Yander, right? As a player that Dortmund could have looked at and possibly made a bid for. So there's definitely a bunch of players there, including Ben Farhat, that that are very interesting, and I'm personally very happy that we do have a sporting director now that may actually take more of an interest in these types of players instead of just going back to England.
Yeah, I think the most interesting moves for me this summer would probably be the ones where it's is this a guy he would have signed for Elversberg if he had the chance? Or is this a guy he got a little priced out of for Elversberg, but he would have wanted? That's what's interesting to me. Because he had some good names over there, mainly on loan. But if you can get these guys that are a little bit better that he's very familiar with, because he'll have seen him in person at least twice this year probably. I don't know if he played in those games, but even then he was the sporting director, so he should be aware of their scouting and their opposition scouting, so he's very familiar with the player. That's something that I think is very conceivable. Next up, we have Jadon Sancho, open to a Borussia Dortmund return for a third time. You gotta go first. You gotta go first. No. This is horrific.
You have the floor.
This is a horrific sign. You want to know how I feel about this, Brian? I'll tell you. I will tell you this is a horrific signing. This is, even if it works out, it's almost worse. Because you have to remember that there's not just the idea of, okay, we spent X amount of dollars on a player and they performed poorly. There's you have to talk about the method. What is the thought process that gets us to sign a player that has not been good in the last 5 years? And if you sign a player that has not been good for 5 years and you're oh, now he is good, you're going to continue to sign players that have proven to be bad over a 5-year span. And don't talk to me about a Champions League run in which he played, he was terrible in the league that year. So there's a reason we didn't sign him. We could have afforded him. We spent a lot of money choosing not to sign him. So we already made the decision that he wasn't worth money. So now are we going to give him more money when he's older? We talked about, he's 26 now. He's on the wrong side of the age curve. You want to give this guy a 4-year contract when he's going to get worse every single year after he just got worse while he was in his peak? It makes no sense. This is a guy with 8 starts for Aston Villa. I don't even know what place they're in. Probably not a good one. Let's find out. Is he even... Oh, they're in 4th place. Don't care. He can't... he's not playing. We're, This is just... It's such a low ceiling move. The ceiling on this move is so low. How many shots does he take per 90? 0.5. He's supposed to be an attacker. Did he start the press? No. He's come off the bench in all his appearances, and he can't even be asked to press. Brian, you're gonna lose your shit if you have to watch this guy every game. He has 2 assists. Great. 2 league assists. Get him in the team. You can pay this guy the low price of a quarter of what he's making this season. 5 million euros. You can pay this guy 20 million euros over the next 4 seasons, and maybe he'll give you 2 league assists, because that's what he's done this year.
He's coming home, man. Just you got to be okay with it. It's happening. It's fine. We've been telling you this in the group chat for weeks now. It's happening. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Nostalgia, bro. Nostalgia.
Even if a broken clock is right twice a day, it's a bad process and it gets you worse outcomes. Nostalgia is bad. It's not a process. that gets you trophies. It's a process that gets you sacking Nuri Sahin while you're in the bottom half of the table on January 23rd, whatever that was. Terrible.
Yeah, I don't think that's the sort of nostalgia people really apply to that. But hey, you know, I mean, listen. At the end of the day, when it comes to Sancho, like I'm kind of in the place where, you know, I'm just kind of like I'm pretty sure it's gonna happen at this point. I just wanted to kind of like give you the floor to be able to share your thoughts there on it. But at the end of the day, I do think that, there's a possibility that there is a player there. I know it's a bit of a coin toss at the end of the day. And obviously, as you mentioned, the numbers aren't
The
necessarily
coin
there
toss
to
is
back up.
50-50 odds, Brian.
I mean, that's the thing, at the end of the day, like it's not always just about the numbers, I would say. It's also environment. I know we kind of talked about that in the group chat, and you did say he's had numerous environments. I think those environments all boil down to the same thing, which is the Premier League. I do think when he did come back and play for Dortmund, he did have a bit more of a positive uptick. And then even then, when we think about that 6 month span, that was after not playing for about 6 months or something like that, as is, because I think he was completely iced out of the United team. Um, at the end of the day, like this isn't something where I would be like, oh, Dortmund really should be going for this, or should be pushing for this. At the end of the day, if this is something that happens, it happens, and that is what it is. If we're looking at it through the Ole Book lens of things, not very much an Ole Book signing. The guy has no connection to Sancho whatsoever, and this isn't the profile of player that we would expect Book to look at in terms of player to bring in. So yeah, I mean, through Book's lens, I don't see this being a player that he focuses on. And at the end of the day, you never know. Actually, I mean, I keep saying that this is definitely going to happen. Since Books come in, there's no guarantee that he's going to look at the players that Kale was looking at and be like, oh yeah, we're totally gonna like bring this guy in, even if he was on Kale and Vatska's list. That doesn't mean that this is 100% gonna happen. I'm being a little bit facetious, trying to egg you on a little bit by saying that, but at the end of the day, like. Yeah, I mean, through Book's lens, I don't see this being a very Book signing, but yeah.
I mean, the seasons you're talking about where he came back to Borussia Dortmund, 4 goal contributions in the league in 954 minutes. That's not great. Let's look at the Champions League that year. Like, was he contributing super in the Champions League? He has about 1.28 expected goal contributions, 1 goal. So in about 1,500 League and Champions League minutes, 1,500, 5 goal contributions. So he hasn't in the league put up 10 goal contributions since he left Borussia Dortmund in 21. Or no, sorry, in when was the year he left? He left in 2021. I was a junior in college the last time Jadon Sancho put up double-digit goal contributions in the league. I was in college as a junior. I've been working for a long time now. I am an old man. My back hurts.
I mean, once again, I think the lens that I'm looking through it is like this was a performance of a player. Like, granted, yeah, like he wasn't maybe scoring or assisting every single time, or didn't have like high numbers there. But you're talking about a player that once again was iced out of a team for 6 months. These are performances coming back from basically not playing at all for an extended period of time. Um, I think that there still is a player there. I think it would be a lot of work to bring that player back out into the fore. Um, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like I'm not heartbroken either way at this point with regards to this. I feel like I've heard enough of every summer being like, oh yeah, Jadon Sancho's coming back or he's not. I think this will be the last summer we hear anything about this, so that there is that silver lining. So either he does or doesn't, and that the book will close on that.
No one clipped this, but The only way I see Jadon Sancho being good for Borussia Dortmund is if he has Benjamin Button's disease and he ages in reverse. For those who don't know the film reference, we're on a lot of film references today. Next up, we have another story. Dortmund interested in Luka Vuskovic. Could include Guirassy in Saw deal. Brian, you did the notes. What is that supposed to say?
Swap deal.
Swap deal. Oh, with Tottenham. So we're sending Guirassy to the championship?
That's apparently what what I was seeing. Yeah. Obviously this is a very FIFA-esque transfer. But if we're looking through Book's lens of things, right? This is a young player that's very much shown he's quite good in the Bundesliga. I think that, if in some fantasy world where we were able to pull this off, I would say 100% yes, do it. Unlikely. Very unlikely. The player himself has already said that, he wants to stay at Hamburg, I think, for an additional season to play with his brother. So there's also that hurdle to cross as well. So I think overall it's an unrealistic rumor. But he is a very, so what I'm looking for. I think the profile is very much the type of player that Book would look at. But I do think that overall this is a player very much out of our budget at this point, especially considering there are so many other clubs that are interested in, even if he was going to leave Hamburg and not want to play with his brother for the next season, there's a lot of other clubs that I think he'd be going to, as much as I would love for him to come to Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, I actually think this is achievable. Especially...
Wow. All right, go on.
So, it depends a little bit on his suitors, but if you look at Tottenham Hotspur right now, let's just quickly pull this up so I want to be exact here. I think this is possible. Tottenham Hotspur, 17th. 30 points. West Ham, 29. And you know who Tottenham just put today to be their coach?
I do
Roberto De Zerbi.
Is that official?
That is official.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
You know what Roberto De Zerbi likes to ask his midfielders to do?
Go on.
Pass the ball. Do you want me to read some names here?
By all means, be my guest.
João Palhinha. That's funny. Like, I will tune into every Spurs game to the rest of the season to watch João Palhinha try and pass out from the back. The guy that got kicked out of Bayern because he's more accurate kicking people than the ball. Conor Gallagher. Not terrible. But the weakest part of his game is passing. Papa Matar Sarr. Same thing. Yves Bissouma out injured. When he returns, he's kind of seen better days. James Maddison out for the season. Dejan Kulusevski out still. Lucas Bergvall 20. Rodrigo Bentancur injured. 20-year-old Archie Gray, who's still not shown the ability to pass at the highest level. That's it. These are the guys they're relying on to pass the ball out from the back to the pass out from the back manager.
Well, we'll see how that goes, I guess, for the rest of the season.
1 point cushion, Brian. 1 point cushion.
I don't think the issue necessarily is Tottenham here. I mean, let's just look at the framework of the deal that's being proposed here. So, Guirassy, first of all, you have to convince Guirassy
I think that's
to go to the
out.
championship.
No, I think the swap deal's out. But I think the deal itself, Vuskovic for money.
But see, that's the thing. You're not getting him for less than 40 or 50 million. I highly doubt that. I believe he's on a long contract with them. I don't think it's happening. They're gonna ask for extortionate money.
He signed when he was 16, so even let's say he renewed for 5 years when he was 18. I still think this is doable, and he's 19, so he has at most 4 years left on his contract, which would be difficult to do, but he's one of their most valuable assets. And Spurs are going to have to deal with potentially, if they get relegated, a 30% cut in the TV deal. And then you're talking about players that they're negative on to sell. So, like, if they sell Solanke, they're negative on the deal. Like, they're posting a loss even if they sell him because of how much money they owe. Because you can only amortize so much. And so they're gonna Kolomowani's alone, so they're good there. Richarlison's been at the club for a while, but even if they sell him, they're not necessarily making a ton of money. Like, I think they'd probably just end up keeping him. Mathis Tel, I think they spent 35 million euros on. They can probably get their money back there, so they'd post a small profit. But now you get into the real issues. Xavi Simons, they're not getting their money back if they get relegated. They're not getting their money back on Mohamed Kudus if they get relegated, and he's injured. So they're posting a loss there. Yves Bissouma, they're not going to be able to sell. João Palhinha, they're not getting like their money back. I think he signed on a permanent. Conor Gallagher's leaving. They're not getting their money back. He's 26. They have all these players that they're essentially going to sell, all post a loss on. They have to cut their wage bill massively because they can't afford to do that when they're losing Champions League revenue, they're losing Premier League revenue. So we're talking about a club that's going to need to cut about 30 to 60% of its wage bill while losing 80 million euros of dollars in TV revenue. Like, that's why you have a chance at getting this player. Like, they're going to have to sell half their squad.
On the flip side, though, if you look at just his like base market value, like his base value is 60 million euros right now. And like you said, this is a player that is like one of their biggest like player assets right now, one of the most sought after players. I think they're going to, if there's a player, they're going to try and milk as much out of as humanly possible in terms of sale value. It's going to be him. And I just don't think that we'd be able to compete with, you know, the types of clubs that would go in for him and be able to actually probably pay those higher end fees for him. Like, we're not getting this guy for anywhere. I'd be shocked if we got him for 40. I don't think we're dishing out 40 for a player like this. But I think he's going at least for that 60 million to a club like Bayern. I think that's if he leaves Spurs and doesn't go back on loan to Hamburg for the next season, I think that destination is Bayern.
Well, I don't think he's going back to Hamburg regardless. Like, Bayern, they have 3 very senior center backs. That hasn't necessarily stopped them in the past, but I also think there's a chance that like Nico Schlotterbeck leaves, and if he leaves for like 70 million euros this summer, you're gonna spend a lot of money on the defense. So that increases your odds there. I'm not saying it's 100%. I'm not saying it's likely, but I'm saying like there is a very real chance because like market value it's so superfluous. Like, it's not down to the perception. Like, market value is a perception. The actual value of a transfer is based on like, does this club need to sell? What club is interested? And if Borussia Dortmund are interested, that puts your top end at a defender in that 35 to 40 million euro range. And so, like, obviously, if Arsenal come knocking, who don't really need a center back, but they like to sign all of them anyway, you're getting priced out. If Chelsea decide they need to sign 5 center backs again this summer,
they love their center backs,
even though they have 30 in their pipeline, you're getting priced out. But like, if Chelsea decide they like the guys at Strasbourg, they're gonna roll into it with that and the guys they have at the club. Aston Villa always have weird money issues. A bunch of clubs in England always have weird money issues, and if they decide to go get like the more proven player because they're like Aston, that's more of an Aston Villa thing. You also have like Gahey moving this summer, so like if Liverpool get him, are they gonna want to go and spend 60 million euros on Vuskovic? Like, maybe, but maybe not. So I think there is very much a world in which Dortmund can end up being the only player in for him because he's playing in the Bundesliga, not the Premier League. So all the Premier League sides are out. And then the only other clubs that can afford that 40 million, that 35 to 40 million euro range are the three clubs in Spain and uh, Juventus. And I don't see Juventus doing it. I don't really see him moving to Spain. He speaks German. He's more comfortable there. And, like, yeah, he's not going to be able to get on the same pitch as his brother, but, like, is his brother even going to be ready to debut next year?
I mean, I don't have any insight on that. I just know from what he's talked about, and at the end of the day, that
Yeah.
might just be, him saying whatever it is that he's saying, but that's just something that he's mentioned. So, I mean, obviously, I feel like that is a factor playing in the player's head. Um, I just think like I can see where you're coming from with that. I just feel like the conditions have to be so specific. Like even let's say like we do sell Schlotterbeck, I don't like yeah like I we may spend 40. We might break our transfer record to be able to bring in a player of quality in because we need to. But yeah, that's it. Like that's the limit. Because at the end of the day, if we do sell a player like Schlotterbeck, like we still have so many other players that they're probably going to want to bring in. That's probably going to go towards that budget overall versus 7 million is not just going to go towards one player, obviously, or even I feel like two players. I think that's going to be spread as thin as possible, honestly. Um, but I would love it. I think at the end of the day, Vuskovic is a fantastic player. I think he's um, very much mature beyond his years. He's shown that he's a goal threat. He's shown that he's a defensive rock for Hamburg. I would love to see him in Dortmund colors.
Well, we spent 55 million euros on our two most expensive transfers this past summer, and we didn't really have a major sale. So I think like it's a lot easier for me to see it because our wage bill has stayed roughly the same, and we've gotten the increase in Champions League money, which is 15 to 25 million euros a season. So I think there's a little bit more money there that you could see the club kind of go in and just say, okay, we're going to take our Nico Schlotterbeck sale, put that on two players. So that's like Vuskovic for 40 and another center back for 30, let's say. And then you go and you fill out the rest of your squad between a Garasi sale and that 25 million euros I'm talking about. And all of a sudden you're looking at another 70 million euros that can go on three players. And that's three very good players you should be able to get with that money. And obviously not everyone's going to hit the ground running, but I think that's a cohesive and realistic plan. But we have some quick rumors on players already at Borussia Dortmund that we need to talk about. First off, Anton is linked with Atletico Madrid and Manchester United. I just don't really see this happening given his age profile, given his importance to the squad, and the club's desire for stability. Like, if a center back's leaving, it's probably Schlotterbeck.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think it would be necessarily, I mean, obviously, unless they're offering something crazy for Anton, I don't think it'd be smart for Dortmund to do so. I feel like I've very much warmed to Anton over these last couple of years. This is a player that I feel like has improved in a Dortmund shirt. He's definitely become one of the leaders of this squad. He's good for a surprise goal every now and then, and he's become more consistent defensively, become a far more important part of that defense. So I do think that, like, yeah, unless they're offering something crazy, it doesn't make sense for him to be the player that we're looking to offload. So
What would crazy money be for you?
I would say upwards of 45 million, because then that's where your plan for a player like Vuskovic becomes a bit more realistic, unless we get priced out or whatever. Because I feel like that just makes a bit more sense. Like if we're selling him, like yeah, replace him with a much younger player. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that was actually the same exact number that I kind of came to because I was like, 40 is not enough. I was like, I need a nice round number that's above 40. And I ended up at 45 because I was like, 50 is a little too so
unrealistic.
I was in the same place, yeah. I mean, if you can get it, hey.
Yeah.
Schlotterbeck was set to sign an extension, but then he refuted that information, and he said he'll be making a decision in the next few weeks. He hasn't discussed anything with Ale Book. So, what's going on there, Brian?
Yeah, so there's a quote from Schlotterbeck here. I'm going to read it out for you guys. So he says, I must categorically deny that. Unfortunately, we're not there yet. I negotiated with Sebastian for a long time, but he's no longer with us. What has been reported is unfortunately not true. I probably have made a decision in the coming weeks. The situation has changed a bit. I'll be holding talks with Ole, and we're not at the stage where we're on the verge of a deal. It's a shame for BVB fans right now, but it's not an easy situation for me either. So I guess my first thoughts when seeing this were how much different would be the deal that's being negotiated now with Book B from the one that was on offer, from the one that Kale, I guess, put on the table. I don't think it would be much different, honestly. I think perhaps maybe once again it's a sporting perspective thing that he kind of just wants to see what sort of vision Book has for the club moving forward, and I think that's fair. But I do think it's interesting for him to say that like we're not close at all, because I think if the vision is one, and you're gonna have these conversations soon, I'm assuming, that's ambitious, and the deal remains the same where you were already kind of teetering on being a yes in terms of staying regardless. And that deal, once again, I don't think it would massively change under Book. I think everyone knows, and Book even coming into the job knew how important of a player Schlotty was. I don't see that changing. I don't see why this decision would take, an overtly extended amount of time. So I do think just the wording there is a bit interesting, but at the end of the day, I guess we'll see. I still want to say that I'm optimistic, because I don't see any reason for why Book coming in being less ambitious, for example, than having Kale at the club. So I think that maybe this is a little bit of posturing, maybe just stalling for that conversation. I think the decision still should be something that comes fairly soon.
Yeah, I think these conversations that have been happening probably haven't really involved Nico. Like, Nico's probably been talking to his agent, who was talking to Kale, and I'm sure at some point, like, Rickon had a word and was like, "Hi, Nico, we're gonna sack Kale," and he's like, "Okay, we're still tracking X dates for my contract renewal discussions," and they're like, "Yeah," and then these like little amorphous chats happen in the background between his agent and the club, and they may get to figures, they may not, they may just talk ballparks, which is like, they might be like, we're looking for a deal that's kind of comparable to like Jonathan Tah and Gabrielle at Arsenal. Like, I don't know. But like stuff like that. And then eventually, like, once they sit down, I think things start to move very quickly. Um, I don't really know. And then I think to end it, let's just do one really quick question. Brian, give me a quick player that you would like to sign, that you think is going to transfer this summer. Money is no object. Borussia Dortmund can sign any player. Who
We
are
already
you
talked.
signing?
We already talked about him. It's Vuskovic, 100%. This is a player that I'd be extremely excited about. A player that I think we need. And at the end of the day, yeah, I think that he'd be a fantastic addition to our defense. I think he's shown more than enough with Hamburg to be a very solid player. And I think this is very much obviously, a signing where if money weren't the issue, I think it'd be a no-brainer.
Yeah, I have a quick one for you if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it. I mean,
Elliot Anderson, baby. I was watching
okay.
Nottingham Forest randomly this weekend. Every time you see this guy's stats, you're like, how is this guy doing that for such a crap team? And then you watch the guy play, and it's like, oh, what if I just spin away from this guy? What if like this defender just like bounces off me, and I start dribbling up the pitch and running forward? And it's like, how is this like little dude he's not even like he's not little, but he's not big. And he's just so good on the ball. The technique is there, the passing is there. I think he could do wonders for our midfield. He's probably moving this summer, but for closer to 100 million than we can afford.
I think the club interested was City, so yeah, we're automatically priced out of that.
Yeah, I think the clubs interested are Manchester United and Manchester City, and I think everyone else was like, I don't know if we could afford that guy.
Yeah, but definitely a good shout. Definitely a good shout.
Yeah, if we could, we would.
There's many instances in life I feel like where we wish money wasn't an object, but I guess that's just the theme of the world right now.
So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you like the podcast, rate us 5 stars. We're on YouTube. We've been doing a ton of shorts on our YouTube, our Instagram, our TikTok. So make sure you're staying tuned with those. We really appreciate your support on those. And thank you all for tuning in. Brian, is there anything you want to plug real quick?
No, nothing going on right now on my end. Yeah, just continue to support us as you have, guys. We really appreciate it. So thanks so much for that.
Well, thank you all for tuning in and have a good one.